Welcome to this last part of QSLing on shortwave. Part 1, we talked about what you need to do to get a QSL. Part 2, talked about how to send your report, the best way to send it, and where to get the contact info. In part 3, we're going to talk about who actually can you QSL on shortwave. Well, the first and most obvious QSLing on shortwave, and you see that on my table here, is from international broadcasters. So pretty much all stations that I've seen on shortwave will QSL, and of course with exceptions, like I said, Australia does not. You'll also have Radio Exterior de España that does not anymore. So yes, it is true that some stations don't QSL anymore. That is really true. But you can get some very special QSLs also. And what do you QSL on shortwave besides international broadcast stations? Well, of course, you've got these little tropical band stations from Africa, Central America, South America, Asia. That these are interesting to QSL. Much harder to QSL than regular international broadcasters. So you got to think about that. After you've done the tour of these stations, what else can you QSL? Well, you can QSL amateur radio stations. They will issue QSLs, but keep in mind these are people like you and me. And to send out QSLs, you'll usually want them, send them a self-addressed stamped envelope so that it doesn't cost them anything. Or some of them say they QSL via a bureau, so you have to understand how to QSL them. But to give you an idea of QSLs, here are some. This is WA0RSX, WB9PNU. So these are QSL cards from amateur radio stations, actually, with all the details, the W18W code practice. So these are QSL cards from amateur radio station. So these are nice because these are basically people like you and me that enjoy their radio amateur hobby, and they actually enjoy a lot receiving reports from listeners, actually from shortwave listeners, because it's always nice to see where you were heard, and the station, how good you were receiving them. So they're always glad to receive reports. But keep in mind that, for example, here's one from Japan, an amateur radio station, 7L1WII. Greetings from Japan. This is another very nice card from an amateur radio operator. So you can QSL pretty much every country in the world with this. And if you're QSLing countries, because one of the fun things that some people want to do, and actually I'm kind of part of that, one of my biggest hobby for QSLing is trying to QSL every country in the world. And at some point you get into an area where it's really difficult. You get these, I've QSL'd a lot of countries, and the ones that are left are basically the hardest one to get. So the more it's difficult, and if you receive that QSL from that country that you've been trying for years and you get it, man, you're happy. So a way to actually QSL countries that are not on shortwave with international broadcasts or regular radio broadcasts is through amateur radio. If you hear an amateur radio in a country that you've never QSL before, then I hope that you get that contact information and send them what's required to get a QSL back. But please, if you QSL amateur radio stations, make sure that you send everything necessary to pay for the return of that QSL card. And if you pay for the postage and even put a envelope, so a self-addressed stamped envelope, they're going to be really happy to send you that card. Keep in mind that amateur radio stations are people like you and me. Budgets are very low. I don't think you have the money to send $200, $300, $400 worth of postage every week. That's a lot of money. So by having people just, put all, either with IRCs or, contact that person and ask them, I want to have a QSL, I'm a shortwave radio listener. How should I have a report now if I've heard you? I've had some amateur radio stations actually be extremely friendly because I was a shortwave listener, and send me the card without even asking for postage or anything. There are some on there that will do that. But most of them will say, okay, well, you can send a report with a self-addressed stamped envelope, or just send an RSC or two, and I'll make sure that you get the card. Or there are different ways. So make sure that if you want a card to be nice and to try to help that person as much, so that it doesn't cost them too much to send you that card. So amateur radio stations, these are great ways to get countries and get new QSLs actually. Other types of stations at QSL, utility stations. Utility stations, for example, if you look on my channel, you've noticed that I have videos of stations from, for example, the weather given out, maritime weather from Chesapeake, North Virginia, or from stations in Georgia or California, and also some volmets, or stations that actually give out weather for airplanes, like the Royal Air Force Volmet or Shannon Volmet in Ireland and England. You also have weather broadcast in radio teletype, stuff like that. All of that, usually they do QSL, or at least send letters to confirm that you heard them. These are government-run stations most of the time, and a lot of them do require that you actually put return postage. Not all of them though. I did a few years ago, about 2 or 3 years ago, I did get a QSL from Shannon Volmet in Ireland. Here in Canada we have many little maritime stations on the 2 megahertz band. I have a few videos of that. These are also stations you can QSL. Usually the best way to do it is try to find their contact information on the web. So you try to find what agency runs these stations, and try to, if possible, find the contact information for radio. And the best way, a self-addressed stamped envelope is probably the best way to go, since it won't actually cost them much to send you that letter or QSL. You can also send email reports. Depends on what station you are. If you try an email, you receive nothing, why not try a postal mail and put that self-addressed envelope, so that they don't have to pay for return shipping, for example. So these are another type of stations that you can actually QSL, and that's very nice. It is a different type of hobby, and it's a different type of QSL. And basically, you can put these QSLs. I usually have like three different QSL types that I would consider. Radio station broadcasts have one. Utility stations, another type of utility that I haven't talked about that does QSL. Time stations, time signal stations. WWV, WWVH, CHU Canada, and the other ones around the world will also QSL any reports. So that's another type of utility, QSLing. And last, like I said, there was the amateur radio QSLs. These are nice because with the amount of amateur radio stations on there, receiving cards from them is really nice. A lot of amateur radio stations actually send out also EQSLs, which are pretty nice. For amateur radio information, contact information, well, the best way to get information is actually through QRZ.com. QRZ.com is one of the biggest place to have contact information. You got to become a register for a free account. That will give you access to their postal or snail mail address. And if you actually pay for a subscription, then you'll also get email contact information. Unfortunately, they kind of put that email more secret now, and I understand that there probably was a concern of privacy here. But if you pay, then you'll have email also available for that station. So another thing that you can try for is special event stations. All stations that usually don't broadcast regular programming or are, you know, special stations once a year, etc. That could be quite interesting also to QSL. So you know, there's a lot of possibilities out there, and all you have to do is turn that dial, listen to those stations, and try to find. You know, part of the fun is trying to find that contact information to get that QSL. So why not take a look at all the different aspects of the radio listening hobby. So this was the third part of QSLing. Hope you enjoyed this three-part series where we talk about QSLs, and hopefully it's going to give you that little something that, you know, that little light that's going to be bright enough to just say, well, oh, I want a QSL. This looks fun. This looks cool. And there's nothing more fun, I must say, than receiving a cool QSL card in the mail or by email from some station from halfway around the world. You know, one thing that I always enjoyed when talking with people is that most people, the only thing they get through snail mail is their bills, credit card bills, utility bills. And one of the fun parts of actually QSLing is that now, instead of going to that mailbox and saying, yeah, what kind of bill I'm going to get today, you're kind of more, you know, you're happy to go to the mailbox because you're thinking, hey, maybe today I'm going to get that QSL I've been waiting for. It's always very fun to receive these by mail. So hopefully you QSL'd. If you did, and if you started QSLing, why not talk about it and let us know, and leave these comments and tell us, yeah, I started QSLing and it's really fun, and maybe we can exchange, you know, what stations QSL, which ones don't, and even help each other with, hey, I don't know the contact information of this or this station. Anyone? So we can help each other there. And personally, actually making this three-part video series on QSLs gave me that little something that I've been missing in my heart for maybe a year of QSLing. I haven't QSL'd, I think I QSL'd maybe one or two stations in 2013. And this little series now is kind of making me want to QSL more. So what I'll be doing is probably making a little more, you know, a few reports a week. And I'll be, of course, showing you the results as the year goes by, 2014. So don't forget, be courteous, be friendly, and never, 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 never expect a full 100% response. Always remember, they don't owe you any QSL cards. They actually send you it because they want to. Hope you enjoyed the series. 73 guys and girls.